Hello, and welcome to Hard Conversations. This is a podcast about male sexuality, intimacy, and sex positivity, where we unpack the taboo topic of erectile issues in a safe, non-judgmental space. And now, here's your host, sex therapist, Timothy Norton.
Hello, and welcome to Hard Conversations. I'd like to introduce my guest today, Dr. Laurie Bennett Cook, clinical sexologist who studied at the Institute for the Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. She is also a sexual surrogate. She is the chapter lead for Sex Positive Los Angeles and the new and upcoming Sex Positive Salt Lake City. And you're working on a book, aren't you?
I am. Thank you for, plugging.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're here. We've been trying to get this together for a while now, and this is going to be a good talk.
Okay.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about penises, Laurie.
Oh, please. Yes. Favorite topic.
Is it your favorite topic? How do you feel about penises?
Well, I happen to like them very much. Thank you for asking.
Okay, you're welcome. So, last time I had on a sex therapist, my first episode, I'm a sex therapist. So we're talking about things from a very hands-off, clinical perspective. And what I was excited to talk to you about was, so you worked at a brothel for a year, and in your sex surrogate work, you have tons of hands-on experience. So I wanted to dive into some of that. So for instance, in a typical, does somebody ever come to you to work on ED or erectile issues as a surrogate?
Yeah, actually,
Okay.
That's a pretty common thing that people come and seek surrogacy out for. All too often, somebody will be seeing a sex therapist for such issues, as you know, being a sex therapist yourself. The concerns that come up are, things aren't just working the way they want them to. I can't perform what I want to perform. My partner's not happy. I have anxiety, or I think she's hot, or he's amazing, and I'm just really into this person, but my equipment just won't work the way that I want it to. Talking just can't always get to the things that need to be done, because you can talk to somebody and say, oh, sure, and try these things and go home and practice, but there's not necessarily somebody to go home and practice with. Or maybe what you have said to do didn't quite sound clear to the person who's supposed to go home and try it. And just like anything else, we learn by doing. So that's where hands-on work is really effective.
Yeah, no, I know. I certainly have sent more than a few guys home with a homework assignment, and got a lot of things going on during the week, and tons of other reasons why it might not happen, and yeah, it's a hard thing to work on, especially without a partner,
right?
And even with a partner, there are a lot of things that can happen where it doesn't go as planned. There can be, she's going to have or the partner's going to have an experience that might somehow throw my client off.
Right.
But not with you. With you, you're going to be very
I'm the pro.
present. You're the pro. So,
And sometimes what happens all too often, though, is something gets muddled in the communication, because you can be as clear as you want to be with your client and their partners, whoever they're seeing you with. But it doesn't mean that it's going to come out the way that you want it to when they do start working together. And when I'm working with somebody, whether it's just myself and the person who has concerns over the way things are working, or along with their partner as well, it's interesting, because too often I can say, okay, this is how you're going, I'm just throwing something out there, this is how you're going to grasp the penis. And I can be right there saying, this is how you're going to do it, and hands-on show them this is how you're going to do it, and they still won't do it the same way. So I'm not saying go tell everybody to grasp her penis. I'm just saying. So it can be that there needs to be like that much actual clarity to be able to have somebody say like, no, okay, this, that. So to really get a lot of instruction right down to the minute detail, it just gets lost. People are nervous. They don't like that they even have to have homework around this stuff to begin with anyway. So there's a lot of shame involved. So really, to have something hands-on, and it's just so valuable, so valuable.
Absolutely. And let me back up. In our world, a sexual surrogate is very normal. And so I'm trying to obviously reach a larger audience than sex educators and sex therapists and sex surrogates who know about this. So could you briefly tell us what a sex surrogate is and what a sex surrogate does?
So a sex surrogate works in a triadic model with a sex therapist. So a client would be coming to see you for whatever sexual concerns, issues. I don't like the word dysfunction. So whatever. Yeah, thank you. That just is a negative connotation right there. So whatever it is that they feel that they need to come to talk to somebody about that isn't working the way they want it to work, you will talk with them at whatever point that you can take them through talk therapy. And many times that's enough. And you can find out what the barriers are, and people can find themselves living their sexual lives fulfilling in a way that is pleasing to them. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes people are older virgins, or they have had some sexual trauma, or they have had a negative experience that just won't clear their psyche. Whatever the concern, whatever the situation is that has put them in that place, talk therapy isn't cutting through whatever it is. And just like learning to drive a car, just like learning to cook, just like any of the other things that we need to learn to do, some people just need a hands-on mentor right there that is experienced, that is non-shaming, that is not going to judge them, that can walk them through all the steps needed. So as a surrogate, that's my position. So I would go in and meet with the therapist and the client together in like a first triadic meeting together, so that it's in a space where the client already feels supported, the therapist is there. We can talk about transparency, so the client is aware that the therapist and I will be communicating together over the work that's going to be taking place, and we will set up a plan of action going forward. What's best, what the client's goals are, what their concerns are that they're struggling with right now, what the challenges are they're facing, and what we need to do to get them where they want to be. And then we set up our appointments. So ideally, I would meet with the client earlier in the week, and then they would meet with the therapist afterwards, sometimes the same day or later in the week. So they would have a session with me. I would be able to give the client, the therapist a call afterwards, let them know, hey, this is what we worked on. These are challenges that came up. These are successes. And then the client meets with a therapist later that day or in the week, and they process together what happened and together talk about what would be good going forward. And then the therapist calls me and says, this is what we processed together. This is what we were thinking would be good going forward. And then the client and I meet again. And that continues as long as necessary. A lot of people think that, okay, so somebody's coming to you with sexual issues, so then that means that all you're doing is having sex with your patient, with your clients. And sex is really the least of it. That has happened, but that is actually a rarity. Most clients through the process realize that where their hangups are around intimacy and connection, and something in their psyche that just is not connecting and is creating a barrier to their penis functioning the way that they want it to. So, yeah.
Really like how you say that, the penis functioning the way that they want it to.
It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It's just not cooperating.
Absolutely. And that's so, let's say a sex therapist who isn't really careful about their language calls you and says, so I've got a client with ED, and you stop them in their tracks, and what do you say? Or the guy comes in and says, I have erectile dysfunction. How would you try to have him reframe that?
I usually just let him tell his story the way that he wants to. I don't jump right off immediately when I hear it and just say, like, it's not dysfunction, and start preaching my own soapbox. But I just let them use their verbiage, their wording, and try to meet them where they are at. And when they're done telling their story, then I like to offer some encouragement and just share how there's actual very little dysfunction that happens with a penis. There are things that can cause it to not cooperate the way we want it to, such as medications or life stressors or health issues or not enough sleep or just whatever. There's so many things. Or you're just not in the mood because you're not always going to be able to just turn on immediately. And that's not necessarily a dysfunction on your penis's part. It may not be cooperating, but it's not a dysfunction.
Right.
So to take that word kind of out of our conversation is really helpful, because the word itself is very, there's something wrong.
Right.
That has to be fixed. And most of the time there's not something wrong. It just needs to just kind of be fleshed out.
Yeah.
I guess, for no pun intended, but yeah.
Definitely. So walk us through, I don't know if there's a typical client who comes presenting with this issue, or what's the typical course of treatment, and what are the sessions like?
Oh, let's see. So normally somebody who would come to me with having either been self-diagnosed or sometimes by their doctors with ED are usually older. A few times I've had somebody that's been in their 20s or 30s, but usually they're older gentlemen. And they will come thinking, like everything was working fine. I don't know what it was. I was on this date. Now nothing works and I have ED. Or I haven't dated for a while. I'm widowed and, now I'm trying to and things don't work like they should be. The older men tend to compare themselves to how they functioned when they were in their 20s and 30s, and that's unrealistic. We go over what medications they may be taking, because especially in a really quick to fill a prescription society, that's something that a lot of them have faced, and they take medications for different things. Many times medications have a side effect of lowered libido, especially psychiatric meds. That seems to be something. Blood pressure medications, diabetic medications, they all have side effects of those things. So that's all normal because it's, a side effect of whatever they're going through. So really it's so varied, the reason that they might be coming or not coming, I guess I should say. But coming to see me in particular.
There's just this whole topic. There's a landmine for puns. Yeah, there's a minefield for puns.
Get a little more clear here. So it really depends on the client themselves. So if somebody is coming to me because suddenly things aren't working the way they thought it was, we might talk about like the different stresses in their life and put them in like a relaxing place and talk about like, well, how is it that you go about having sex with somebody? What are the, a lot of the things that you as a therapist have probably talked with them about. For whatever reason, because they know that there's going to be touch involved with me, sometimes they tend to dish out more than they do with their therapist. And I'm not really sure why that is. It could just because I don't know. I don't really know. Ask them next time they're in there.
I will.
Yeah. But that's okay. And then we start with just simple exercises of just kind of getting to know each other, just really kind of slowing things down, because too often men in general have goal-oriented sex. So they want to get together with somebody, and the goal is, I see somebody that I like, I'm going to get hard, we're going to foreplay for a few minutes, there's going to be penetration somewhere, and I'm going to get off, and hopefully my partner will too. And if you're not hard enough to get to penetrate, or you're not getting off, then something's wrong with you, is what they tend to think.
That's the story, yes. Yeah,
that's the narrative that you grow up with. So slowing things down and starting to work on intimacy relation and different exercises around that, and having things like just holding hands for a while, eye gazing, having our breath the same, spooning, caressing different parts of the body, and isolating the touch, knowing that like today we're going to caress the back and only the back for 15 minutes, and I'm going to caress you and then you're going to caress me. That's as far as it's going. That's all we're doing. Really gets people to slow down and take the goal off and heighten those senses that have become desensitized. Many times they haven't even been recognized that they're even there to begin with, because they're not part of the penis. So why would you focus on the back? So did that really answer your question?
Yeah,
I feel like I totally just rambled all over.
No, you rambled in a perfectly coherent way. So you start small, you start with intimacy, you start, and maybe not even call that small. It's some of the most important parts or the most enjoyable parts of being naked and alone with somebody.
Yes, yeah. It's really interesting because very often when I would say more times than not, when we're doing an exercise, even if it's just like caressing hands or caressing the face, clients will break down and cry because it's such a vulnerable place to be when you are just in a passive or an active role that isn't goal-oriented, because you can't really hide from the person that you're with so much. It's really causes you to have to be very present, and that's a really hard thing to do for people.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, when he breaks down and cries, does he storm out of the session, or how do you bounce back from that?
No, just work through it.
Just
go,
work through it.
Yeah, just sit with it and acknowledge it and let it pass, and acknowledge how okay it is, and then process it, and, why do you think that came up and what was it, and then move on to something else that's going to push the boundaries even a little more, and just keep it growing. We start off with small things that only in small parts of the body, like I said, maybe just hands for 5 minutes, and then move up to like fingertips to forearms for like 7 minutes, and then fingertips to your shoulder for 10 minutes, and just keep expanding where we're touching for the amount of time. And this is over time. For some people, just hands in a session is more than enough to cause them to go like, whoa, okay, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. And for other people are like, yeah, okay, well, what the heck was that? But it just increases your ability to be present and to really feel and absorb what it is that you're experiencing.
So interesting. And so in generalizing that and taking that home, so you guys hold hands and there's an emotional experience, or just there's intimacy, and now he or the person with the penis has to go home and apply some of this stuff. When does it quote unquote work, or when is that kind of a challenge? When is it not generalizing? Like what do you see?
As far as, what do you mean? Like, when does what work?
So now he's been intimate with you, and now he wants to go home and have some sex. So when...
Most of the people that I'm seeing don't have partners, and that's one of the reasons that they need to see somebody, because they have somebody to practice with.
Right.
When surrogacy started, it was way back with Masters and Johnson, and they had couples come in that they were working with their sexual concerns. Those that didn't have partners, they hired prostitutes to work with the unpartnered people, and they found it to be extremely effective. So then they started a whole surrogate program. Just a little backstory.
Yeah.
So to have somebody that has a partner, if the partner's willing, then the partner can come to session as well. And then that's really helpful, because I can work hands-on with somebody and say, okay, so and have the partner right there with me. Like, this is how I would do this. This is what we're finding to be effective. Now you try, and go back and forth and work with the two of them being able to communicate together. A lot of times that's the biggest barrier, is that partners have a hard time saying, I like it when you da-da-da-da, or I don't like it when you don't do this. They think that just moaning and sighing is enough for somebody to know exactly what you mean, and it never is. So if they are partnered and the partner is willing, then it's great if the partner will come to session as well. I'm totally open to that, and I've done that.
Okay. And then I guess, as you started to say earlier, then you're guiding the partner through different things. And when you say communication, so can you speak more to that? So what are typically, because you'll read about this in erectile dysfunction blogs and those kinds of things, like the different pitfalls for, someone could say, oh, it's okay, I don't care. It could be the response, or not saying anything. And so what are you finding that a lot of partners are doing that aren't helping the situation?
They just don't talk.
We
don't have a hard time telling somebody, like, well, I don't really like my food spicy. So if you're going to cook for me, thank you so much, but I would really like it if you didn't put the sriracha in on the tacos.
Yes.
But if you're going to have sex, like, we don't like to tell somebody, well, I don't really like it rough. I like it really, soft and gentle. So if we are going to do this, then I would really like it if you could, slow down, take your time with me. That just doesn't, people just don't communicate that way. And we have no role models for that anywhere. All of our media, people get together, we just met, and then we kiss in the next scene. I mean, they go from their first kiss at a nightclub or in the street, and then somehow they went back to their apartment, but they get to the apartment and they're in this frenzy as they walk in the door and they're ripping each other's clothes off and they have sex, and then the next scene is they wake up and they're like, oh, wasn't that amazing? Yeah. But there was no communication. There was no, I don't like it when you do this, I don't like it when you do that, or I do like this, I do like that. There was a movie, I think it was called Two Night Stand or something like that, that is really a really good role model for communicating with a lover about sex. And it was, I think that's what it's called. I'll have to look it up. But it was this couple met for a one-night stand, and they accidentally got snowed in together. And so they, woke up and they're like, great, I don't really even know you. I don't want to be here. So the second night they're like, okay, we'll do this, but we both get to tell each other what we like and don't like, and, direct each other going forward. Because they admitted, I really didn't have fun last night. You really didn't do anything for me. And so the whole next sex scene is them saying, oh, no, actually, don't touch me like that. Touch me like this. Oh, wait, now that was too fast. Now I need it like this. And just really talking back and forth. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean you have to do that every single time, but you need to be open to that. Mm-hmm. Most people are not.
Most people are not, definitely. Mm-mm. And it's
and you're not supposed to be. Right. You're just supposed to just know. Because if he really loves me, he'll know how to touch me. Yeah. You don't know how to, like I said, you don't know how you like their pizza. How am I going to know how you like your sex?
Right. And so everybody's going to say, oh, but Laurie, that's just going to kill the mood.
Is it though? Is it really going to kill the mood? Maybe that first time it might be a little different, and it can be fun to be talking to each other and just say, oh, no, direct this way or that way. But the next time you get together with that person, think about it.
Absolutely.
You already know. You've been directed. You're not going to have any guessing games. I know what you like. Right. I got this. Let's go.
Right. And so valuable to have a conversation. If it's a long-term partner, you might have sex several thousand times.
Right.
So what if a couple of sessions involve more talking, or every year or two? So what?
And how many times as a sex therapist have you sat across from couples that have said, we've been married for 20 years, the sex has never been good?
Yeah.
Well, have you shared that with your partner? Well, this is the first time I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
Well, we just don't talk about it.
No, definitely.
Yeah. But you come to me now that,
right.
And here I'm a stranger, but you share a mortgage together, but you can't talk about we don't have a problem saying can you scratch my back a little lower? No, the itch right there. And oh my God, yes, right there. That feels so good.
It's the same exact script.
It's the same exact script.
Yes.
But we can't do it when it involves genitals.
Right.
So interesting.
So valuable, so insightful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking about did the same stuff apply at the brothel or what would happen there? I mean, obviously you haven't normalized, hey, you've just been talking to a sex therapist, and it's more on the fly, right? It's you're in the game. So how does it happen? What does it look like in a situation like that?
So working in the brothel is what got me into surrogacy to begin with.
Okay.
Because there were so many clients that would come through there, and they just needed somebody to tell their fantasy to, that as an experience they wanted to share, someone that wasn't going to make them feel bad about whatever it was. Some of them had been, oh, I really like this thing, but my girlfriend makes me feel bad, and I can't get it up for her anymore, but I really hope that I'm not broken. I just want to make sure that I can. Well, when you're sitting across from somebody who's totally game for whatever you want to do, and I'm not vested, and I think that, sure, let's give it a try, and am willing to hear the fantasies that they're ashamed or afraid to tell their partner, or maybe they've told their partner and their partner has laughed at them, to be in a place where those thoughts can be validated, and you can not only feel okay about what they are, but actually feel kind of good and fun about whatever they are. Performance is so much better. Yeah, and you just feel better. For a lot of men coming through there, it was just very validating.
Yeah. And as you were saying, a lot of guys might have been coming in because they were worried that they wanted to make sure that it still worked. They want to make sure that outside of the relationship, they could have an erection.
And that they were actually normal. There were many of them that are just like, well, I like this thing and my partner doesn't like it and they think I'm a freak. And, you know, that thing could be something that I guess what the thing with sex is that it's so subjective. And we tend to think of it as, you know, it's not normal, whatever it is. So that thing that they like, maybe they like pulling hair during sex and their partner is just like, that's mean, that's, you know, why would you ever do something like that? And they just want to know that they're okay and that it's fun and fine. I had people come through that were different fetishists and we tend to, we meaning society, really make fun of people that have strong likes towards certain things, different fetishes. And that's why there's so much underground around all of that. So being able to be a space where somebody can just share whatever it is and have somebody willing to play out that fantasy, whatever it was, is really ego boosting as well and really normalizing. When people are shamed for something about their sexuality, because it's such a core of who we are as a human being, it really spills over into other areas of their life as well, and can just kind of root itself in someone's overall, not just their sex esteem, but their self-esteem, and make them question other parts about themselves if they're normal. So,
yeah, the shame.
Shame runs really deep. It's really deep. Yeah.
And so that's an interesting transition. So well, how did you end up being inspired to go and start there in the first place? Had you already gone to school and then you were already Dr.
I was actually
Laurie?
in law school.
Okay.
Yes. And all this is going to be in the book.
Okay.
And I was at a motorcycle rally with my husband, and I had always thought sex work was just fascinating, but I wasn't going to actually go out and go do this. I was in my early 40s at the time, so I was like, there's no way I'm going to go do that in my 40s and go do something like this. But basically, I met somebody at the rally that happened to be in management at one of the brothels, and she, just through conversation, she really pushed. She was like, no, I think you need to come try this. And whatever it was that she saw in me, I didn't really know that was there. So finally, out of curiosity, I was like, I'll go try this just for fun. And it completely changed. My 2 weeks there ended up being a year, and it completely changed the way that I saw humans in general.
Wow.
And when I left there, I ended up dropping out of law school and changing grad schools and going to grad school for sexology instead.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess I didn't remember that part of the story.
You just see people and learn about people and hear about people, their most authentic, transparent self, the self that they don't show outside of those doors. And human beings are just raw and beautiful and vulnerable. They leave that place and those walls and go up, and all the fake identities that we create for ourselves to make ourselves acceptable by society around us, we put back up. But that's not always who we really are. There's not a lot of authenticity walking around because it's not always safe to do so.
Yeah.
Whether it be, with our sexuality or our gender or our fantasies, it's just not always okay. It's usually not okay.
Yeah.
So.
And we talked about this before our conversation. As I hear you be so eloquent about your time doing sex work, we'd be remiss to not mention SESTA that was just passed.
Yes.
And, it's great for people to hear you talk about what beautiful experiences you had there and how inspirational it was. And it changed the course of your life. You drop out of law school when you were doing sex work.
Yeah.
And SESTA, for all of its great intentions, is adversely affecting a lot of sex workers of all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that sex trafficking is a horrible, horrible thing. So I am completely supportive of stopping sex trafficking. Unfortunately, this isn't the way to do it, is to go after all of sex workers, because there are plenty of people out there doing sex work like myself, male, female, trans, that have a stable life at home. I have. I'm saying had because at the time when I got involved as well, a family, decent career, like that whole America white picket lifestyle that people think it's what we try to attain so much. I've had all that. And I didn't go into sex work out of desperation or to prove something to somebody or to support a drug habit or because I was sexually abused as a child or because I had daddy issues or whatever the plethora of things are because people put it out there. I went into sex work because I really like working with people. I really like sex. Like any career, it's something that you find yourself good at and you're like, you know what, I can make a positive difference in people's lives this way. And this is for me. There are a lot of sex workers that feel very much the same way that I do and are good at what they do and are giving people a level of not just pleasure, but a level of acceptance and a feeling of love and caring that they don't get anyplace else. We tend to think that just because there's a money exchange, that somehow devalues what's happening, weirdly, because we don't ever think that the money exchange devalues anything else that goes on in our society. In fact, it's just the opposite. People tend to think the more you pay, the better whatever it is that you're getting. Mm-hmm. So the fact that somebody is willing to, rather than I'm a shy person, I'm a scared person, I'm just a very busy person, I don't like dating people person, whatever it is they have going on that makes them think they want to go to a sex worker and just meet with somebody. It's upfront. It's honest. There's no games. This is what I have to spend. Okay, well, this is how much time I have to give you. What can we do on our time? This, and this. Fair exchange. And that's that. There's no games. It's just very honest. Like I said, the fact that money is involved, somehow people think that there's something terrible about it. What I do find interesting is that if I were to have somebody come to my house and pay me money to have sex with me in the privacy of my own home, we make a decision to do that, it's illegal. Mm-hmm. If that same person comes to my house and we exchange money to have sex and we film it and put it out there for other people to see, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense to me. None because whatsoever. What we choose to do privately as consenting adults should be nobody else's business but our own.
Yeah.
So.
And like we were saying, unfortunately, these laws are really, really making it unsafe for people doing sex work out there.
They really are, because people already have a hard time reporting if any crimes against them. Say a client has actually been violent, which can happen. I've been very fortunate that in the many years that I've been behind this work, nothing like that has happened. But it can. But you're already in a society where people have a hard time reporting sexual crimes that happen regardless if you're in sex work or not. And now you're making it a criminal offense even more. So, like, it's just, I don't know. I feel like the people that they say they're not intending to go after are going to be at more risk of being harmed.
Yeah.
And places like Backpage and communities where sex workers could communicate with each other about different clients and stuff. If somebody was a safe person or a good client or what they thought about them, and vet different people without that being available, that makes more risk of harm as well. And it could potentially send more people to the street. Street prostitution went up, I think it was like 20% after Red Book closed a couple of years ago. And now Backpage is closed. We haven't seen the statistics from that yet, but I'm sure that street work will go up, which puts more people actually at risk of being trafficked, whatever, how you say it. So yeah, I think it's just the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So, I guess my next question might have had a different answer 6 months ago, but in terms of, I wouldn't want to make a choice between, or say somebody's choosing between a surrogate or a sex worker, but I feel like you could speak to the value of both. Or, if somebody what we're talking about, erectile issues, what would be the things to take into consideration, and how confident could he feel about going to a place like a brothel, and how could he vet and say, okay, this would be a safe person to work on this with?
I think that for those people that want a bit more therapy and processing to go a little bit deeper, then definitely with your therapist and your surrogate is a good way to go. It'll probably be more feasible, even though it might end up costing the same. But in the long run, you'll take more time and have more sessions and be able to process a little deeper. But picking out a sex worker and talking to somebody and being honest about what it is that you're dealing with, and finding somebody who's really conscious, attentive, isn't just there to make a quick buck and send you on your way, is very valuable. And there are a lot of them out there that are like that, that are in this work because they love the people that they work with, and they can see the value in the work that they do. So to find somebody who's an actual very conscious, caring person, and being honest with them about what it is that you're facing. If they're just like, yeah, it's no big deal, and come on, I can take care of it because I'm good at what I do, and just, one and done, probably not the person that you want to actually go work on those issues with. But if they're like, you know what, let's take our time, see what we can do. There's never any guarantees, but let's go have some fun and see what works for you. And especially if you can meet with somebody that you can meet with more than once, that would be fantastic as well, because the more comfortable you get with somebody, and that usually happens through repetition, then the more you're going to be able to let your own vulnerability and guard down and take care of those things that are concerning you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about all of this, we're talking about shame. And I think one of the things I see most often with different guys is performance anxiety. Can you speak a little bit? Can you, give some advice out there? What are some of the things that you coach guys on or educate them on regarding, this narrative that they have to essentially be the lover they just saw in the porn they were watching earlier that day, that just fucked for 45 minutes straight and had this massive orgasm all over
on her face,
several faces at once, right? And all that. So add some wisdom to what's actually required of
Well, what's fascinating is because just the term itself, performance anxiety, you got to stop performing.
Right.
Like, it's not a performance. It's not a performance. It is an engagement and an interaction with another human being. And it's like a dance. And you really need to be able to read and want to be with that other person, not just so you can show them what you got, but to be able to have an experience with somebody, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to look like, okay, we kiss and then I touch this nipple, lick that nipple, my hands go down and, stroke the cock or stroke the vagina, whatever it is that, the partner. But anyway, we get to genitals and then I penetrate and boom, we're done.
Right. It's like there's a grid.
There's a grid that people, it's like, just stop. How about we just get together and see what unfolds? There is no performance other than whatever feels right between you and your partner. There's no hierarchy of best sex ever. There's no skill set that you have to master or, to become so great. And, well, I can do these tricks. Well, I can make anybody squirt. Well, I can make it. And just stop it. Just how about, can you be present with the person that you're with and actually enjoy that person's company and the fact that they are offering their time and space to spend with you. And that's a pretty big gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. There's no performance. We could,
no performance.
Let's repeat that.
Unless you're filming.
Okay.
And maybe you are. But even then, have fun with it. Yes.
But off camera, there's no performance.
Right.
I like the analogy to a dance. That's really nice. Just like a something artistic, something like tango. I like the word play in the kink community.
Yeah.
The difference between saying, I'm going to come over and penetrate you, in so many words versus, hey, let's play.
Yeah. Yeah. And just see and it keeps it light and it keeps it no pressure. And it's fun, and it's okay to be like, that's not working for me. Let's try something else. Okay. Yeah.
And is that anxiety, that performance anxiety, quote unquote, it must be palpable when
it's very common too.
Yeah.
It's very common.
And you probably saw it as much in the brothel as a surrogate or.
What happens most of the time when somebody is hung up on their performance and they have all this anxiety around it, more than likely, it's not going to be a good sexual experience for your partner.
Yeah.
Because you are so in your head about how you're performing and what you're doing to look a certain way, to make them feel a certain way, to get whatever results it is that you're seeking, that, people can tell. You can tell when somebody's really trying hard to impress you or doing something, as opposed to when somebody is really hungry for you and somebody really wants to be in your presence and really wants to enjoy you, whatever that you is. But when you're so in your head, hung up, worried about how you're doing, you can't really express that desirous emotion that you might be should be feeling for the person that you're with. And
I love the thought of you teaching that because so in the therapy room, I'm calling that mindfulness, right? And I've got handouts and, here are the things that you do. And we're going to do it in session. We're going to be mindful of chewing a raisin, or we're going to be mindful of your partner's gaze in the room. And there might be touch, they might hug each other mindfully, but that's about as kinky as it gets, right? And then they've got to translate that at home to mindfulness where somebody's holding my penis or my penis is inside of somebody or we're naked. I mean, let's just start there.
Right.
And so for you to be able to draw their attention to when they're tuned out or when they're
in those moments as they happen. Yes.
And I bet that must be so exciting for them to say, I didn't even realize it.
Right. It is really powerful. Yeah. And that's when those kind of things have to happen. Just like when you are teaching a child to be potty trained or something, it's just like anything that we teach anybody about anything. Like you just don't realize it till you're in that moment and you're like, oh, that's what you mean. Okay. Yeah. I get it. Now let's go forward.
Yeah. And putting it that way, I think of, there was that example in the Christopher Ryan book about that tribe and remote part of China where the women take aside the men when they hit puberty to teach them sexual skills. And how nice that would be.
It's a mentorship.
Yeah. How many things that you need to learn.
Well, and it makes sense. I mean, they wouldn't have allowed it in our country.
Right.
And I'm not telling people go out and pick a child and start doing these things.
Right.
But if you think about all the things that we have to learn how to do, to be mentored to do, that we make sure that, people know how to drive safely, how to cook, how to do a job, all the training that you put on. This is your body. This is what you are with you. This body's with you from the moment you're born till death. And it makes sense that you would want to teach somebody how to use it to its best ability, not just for yourself, but for the other people around you, whether that's in a sexual way or how you're going to do your labor or just whatever. But, you exercise, like train your body. This is your body. So why wouldn't you want to give it skills in sexuality as well as everything else that we're okay with giving our body skills in?
I know you're an encyclopedia of sexual knowledge. We could talk about things for hours. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the book, or is that still kind of top secret?
It's not top secret. Basically, it's going to be about just the sexual work that I've done and how I got into it and some hurdles I had along the way and what got me to where I am here today. So I guess in a roundabout way. So I have a good editor on the job because I'm not an editor, but it's really fun. I'm finding it really fun to write. I usually only write articles, so they've been after me for a long time to do this. So I'm fine.
Yeah, I was so thrilled to hear that.
Yeah.
And how do people find you the social internet media realm?
Social media.
Just ask
I know.
around? Or...
You could Google my name, Dr. Laurie Bennett Cook, and you will find things all over there. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm not a technical savvy person, so the only website that I have is my little About Me page. But all my contact information is out there. I can be reached at kinkucation@yahoo.com or justlbc, which are my initials, at yahoo.com. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm there.
Well, thank you so much. Was there anything else you wanted to say to us?
I'm sure I'll think of it as soon as
Right, and you'll text me and I'll edit it in there. One thing I wanted to say, we'll make sure we got the name of the movie right. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is
This is
wonderful
fun.
to have this voice out there, and hopefully we'll just keep shipping away this work. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks to the show's executive producer, Robin Morrison. Thanks to Kat Murphy, director of social media. Thanks to Team Scrub for the music. Thanks to the sound engineer, Ravi Carmen. Thanks to Brian Hui for naming the show. Thanks to Alex Pitts for the intro. Thanks to Arlene Asuncion for the logo. You can find this podcast at hardconversationspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. You can locate me on Twitter at TimNortonLCSW. or on my website for my private practice, timnortontherapy.com. You can also email us at hardconversationspodcast@gmail.com or call into our hotline at 662-626-4276. That's 662-MAN-HARD. Thanks to all my friends and family for brainstorming this show with me. Shout-outs to the sex-positive community, including sex educators, sex therapists, sex coaches, other fellow sex podcasters, sex surrogates, academics, the sexual health medical community, sex workers, the tantric community, and everybody else involved with having hard conversations. Bye-bye.